Hello, Exhibiflix again. Before we start, we invite you to visit us at exhibiflix.com, our own channel, to watch great movies and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Today we will talk about the golden age of Mexican cinema. This was a period in the history of the cinema of Mexico between 1933 and 1964 when the Mexican film industry reached high levels of production, quality and economic success of its films. Besides having gained recognition internationally, the Mexican film industry became the center of commercial films in Latin America. The Golden Age began symbolically with the film Let's Go with Pancho Villa from 1935, directed by Fernando de Fuentes. In 1939, during World War II, the film industry in the US and Europe declined, because the materials previously destined for film production now were for the new arms industry. Many countries began to focus on making films about war, leaving an opportunity for Mexico to produce commercial films for the Mexican and Latin American markets. This cultural environment favored the emergence of a new generation of directors and actors, considered to date icons in Mexico. In 1939, Europe and the United States participated in World War II, and the film industries of these regions were severely affected. Europe, due to its location, and the United States, because the materials used to produce films, such as cellulose, became scarce and were rationed. In 1942, when German submarines destroyed a Mexican tanker, Mexico joined the Allies in the war against Germany. Mexico won the status of most favored nation. Thus, the Mexican film industry found new sources of materials and equipment and secured its position in the production of quality films worldwide. Since the beginning of talkies in Mexico, some films like Santa from 1931, directed by Antonio Moreno, and The Woman of the Port, 1934, directed by Arcadi Boitier, were a huge blockbuster that showed that Mexico had the equipment and talent needed to sustain a strong film industry. One of the first blockbusters was the film Allá en el Rancho Grande by Fernando de Fuentes, which became the first classic of Mexican cinema. This film is referred to as the initiator of the Mexican film industry. In the early 1940s began the emergence of great Mexican film studios settled in Mexico City. They began to support the mass production of films. Amongst the most important ones are Plaza Films, Filmex, Films Mundiales, Películas Rodríguez, and Producciones Mier y Brooks, among others. Mexican cinema continued to produce works of superb quality and began to explore other genres such as comedy, romance, and musical. In 1943, the film Wildflower brought together a team comprising the filmmaker Emilio Fernandez, the photographer Gabriel Figueroa, the actor Pedro Armendáriz, and actress Dolores del Rio. The films Maria Candelaria from 1943 and The Peril from 1947 were considered pivotal works by Fernandez and his team, and gave Mexican cinema enormous prestige, with their works being shown worldwide in major film festivals. Maria Candelaria was awarded in 1946 with a Golden Palm in the Cannes Film Festival. The Peril was awarded the Golden Globe of the American film industry, being the first Spanish film to receive such recognition. Mexican cinema in its golden age mimicked the star system that prevailed in Hollywood. Thus, unlike other film industries, Mexican cinema saw the development of the cult of a star, in a way very similar to that of the American film industry. However, unlike what happened in Hollywood, Mexican film studios never had total power over the big stars, and these allowed them to grow independently and develop in a wide range of genres. Mainly figures emerged in Mexican cinema in the early 1950s, much more versatile and complete than those of the previous decade. Among the actors who attained the status of idols in the Mexican cinema, arguably Pedro Infante stands out the most. His first films were not aimed towards creating a myth. The result of his meeting with the director Ismael Rodriguez in the film Nosotros los Pobres from 1947 served to consolidate the figure of Infante within the mythology of Mexican cinema. For many, Infante represented what every Mexican should be: a dutiful son, an unconditional friend, a romantic lover. In the extensive gallery of stars of Mexican cinema, Pedro Infante is the only one who could unify public sentiment. His popularity has continued to grow as new generations are born. His figure remains the most important in Mexican cinema. Another one of the early mass idols in Mexican cinema was Jorge Negrete. In addition to his role as an actor, Negrete was also a prominent singer and one of the leading representatives of Mexican ranchera music. Negrete was one of the highest grossing actors of Latin American cinema during almost the entire decade of the 40s. His premature death led to collective mourning in Mexico. Maria Felix was an exceptional case in the Mexican cinema. A woman of a stunning physical beauty and strong personality who immediately dominated the roles as a femme fatale in Mexican movies. Before the success of Maria Felix, women were in supporting roles, self-sacrificing mothers, submissive girlfriends. Based on the success of Felix, more movies with female themes began to be made. The film Doña Bárbara from 1943 began the myth of Maria Felix as La Doña. The unique real personality of Maria merged with her on-screen personality, leading to one of the most fascinating myths of the seventh art. Her legend was forged without her lifting a finger. The imagination of the people did all the work. One of the faces that captivated the audiences was Pedro Armendáriz. Although he did not have any indigenous roots whatsoever, Armendáriz managed to embody the Mexican essence better than any other actor in Mexico. This shared appreciation from historians, critics, colleagues, and admirers is based significantly on the characters that the actor starred as under the direction of Emilio Fernández. Later, Armendáriz dabbled in Hollywood and some European countries. Mario Moreno Cantinflas was a comedian and mime who emerged from the popular theater. He achieved great popularity in the cinema with his portrayal of the character Cantinflas, a charismatic poor man, a friendly neighbor, with quite a peculiar speech. The character of Cantinflas was to Mario Moreno as the tramp was to Charles Chaplin. But unlike Chaplin, Cantinflas based his character on joy rather than melancholy. His characters were always exhilaratingly funny. Cantinflas enjoyed remarkable success. As Mexico was the main film industry in the Spanish-speaking countries, its industry attracted other important figures from other Hispanic film industries. The most important were the Spanish Sara Montiel, who achieved international renown after making a name for herself in Mexican cinema during the first half of the 1950s, and Argentinian Libertad Lamarque, who after leaving her country in 1947, after an award-winning career in Argentine cinema, settled in Mexico. From Spain there were other such actors like Jorge Mistral, Armando Calvo, or Lola Flores. From Argentina there were Nini Marshall and Luis Aldaz. From Cuba there were René Cardona, Rita Montaner, or Rosita Fornes, while Iracema Dilian was imported from Italian cinema. One of the nations where Mexican cinema was most popular was Yugoslavia, where for much of the 1950s Mexican films comprised the majority of the films that were screened. The 1950 film Un Día de Vida, which premiered in 1952 in Yugoslavia, was one of the most popular films of the decade in that nation. Meanwhile, Mexican cinema had been stalled by bureaucracy and difficulties with the Union. Film production was now concentrated in a few hands, and the ability to see new filmmakers emerge was almost impossible due to the impositions of the directors of the Union of Workers of the Cinematographic Production, STPC. On April 15, 1957, the whole country mourned with the news of the death of Pedro Infante. His death also marked the end of the golden age of Mexican cinema. Thank you for watching! What is your favorite Mexican movie? And what other topics would you like us to analyze? Have you subscribed to this channel? Ring the bell to be notified of new videos, share our content, like us, also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And what are you waiting for? Visit us at exhibitflix.com for great movies and follow other film lovers.